loves, welcome back to my channel. So we're going to do a recap of the season 3 episode 9 of Seeking Sister Wife. The name of the episode was Dropped a Bomb on Me, and they're referring to what happened with the Clarks in this episode as the episode title. So your girl gets early access to the shows because I got Discovery Plus. So just a warning, I am going to be recapping the show that comes on later tonight on TLC. So if you don't want me to spoil it for you, then you might want to click off now. So let's get right into it with the Clarks. So the Clarks went on a date with Jarrod's friend Emily. So she became a lot more interested in polygamy, and she wanted to explore polygamy more. So they all went out to eat with Emily, Vanessa, and Jarod, and the Clarks were pretty nervous because they haven't been on a date with someone new in over 2 years since their first date with Kayla. They said they still love Kayla very much, but they figured it's time to move on. So Jarod said his goal is to have up to 4 wives. I guess 1 wife for every kid they have. So Emily was super nervous because this was her first time going on a date with a couple. So Jarod asked Emily what interested her in polygamy and where her head was at. So Emily said she was curious how things would work with 3 people instead of 2, and she was curious what her role would be. And Vanessa said, hey, that's a good question. So Jarod said there's no hard expectations. Jarod says they don't live by rules or schedules. They can figure that out as they go along. So I was super curious to see what bombshell Emily dropped this week after I saw the spoilers from last week's episode. So Emily asked the Clarks what they wanted in polygamy. So Vanessa said she wanted someone to be her best friend. Jarod said he's looking for another wife and queen. Vanessa's looking for a best friend, and they're looking for someone who can be another mother to their 4 kids. So Emily is young and only 22, and she seems unsure what she wants out of life. So Vanessa is scared that Emily might not be ready for everything a polygamous relationship requires since she's so early on in her 20s. And Emily said she is getting over a heartbreak from her ex Mars, and her ex Mars was a girl, and Emily dropped the bombshell that she's bi. So that's when things got super confusing and awkward. Emily says Mars is the first girl that she's dated, but she's done things with girls in the past. Jarod and Vanessa were both shocked and just had their mouths wide open. And Jarod said that he had no idea, and he was just in as much shock as Vanessa was. So Jarod said the relationship doesn't include the wives actually doing things with each other. It's just like Jarod and the wives. But hey, that's kind of a compliment to Kayla, because that means Emily was wanting some of Kayla. So Emily asked if she was in a polygamous relationship if it would be considered an open relationship. And Jarod said that isn't what they practice, and the women don't engage with each other in the bedroom. So Emily said, you do know a woman knows a woman's body best, right? And Jarod said he is competitive and he doesn't agree with that, and there isn't a woman in the world that can do what he does. So Jarod and Vanessa feel like Emily is only interested in a polygamous relationship because of the word poly, and she thinks that means multiple partners, but that isn't what the Clarks are looking for. They don't want a potential sister wife to have another love outside of the house or be looking for another love. So Emily kept throwing the word explore around, and that was just setting off many red flags left and right. Jarod said he isn't interested in the whole exploring thing. He said he really needs to be with someone who is really interested in what they're pursuing. Jarod said he doesn't want someone who just wants to explore polygamy. He wants his forever wife. So Vanessa said they just got out of a relationship with someone who is still trying to find themselves, aka Kayla, and they want to make sure their next sister wife is someone that is looking for the same thing they want, because they don't want to waste any more time or get hurt again. So Jarod said he doesn't have a problem with Emily liking girls and guys, but he is concerned because Emily still is trying to get to know herself and figure herself out, and if she still hasn't done that, it's going to be hard for her to grow with 2 other individuals and figure them out and move forward when she's still trying to figure out who the heck she is. So Emily threw the word explore out over and over, and that made them have flashbacks of Kayla, because that's what Kayla said she needed to do before she finally up and left. So Jarod said he would be a fool not to listen to all the red flags and move forward just to be back at square one. So Jarod said he's just going to stay friends with Emily, but they aren't going to continue to date because there's just way too many red flags for them to ignore, and they're just going to have to keep on with their search of trying to find their next potential sister wife. But Jarod low-key seemed like he was smiling from ear to ear, and he seemed so excited whenever Emily said that she liked girls and she liked guys and all that. But I guess, he has to think about his family and what's best for Vanessa and his kids and all that. So he decided not to continue and pursue it. But, I think it makes it really hard when you are trying to find a potential sister wife, when you're trying to do a TV show, because you can get people wanting to be interested in polygamy that normally aren't, just because the whole glam of all the TVs and everything. People will convince themselves that that's something that they're interested in, even though they're not, just because a camera crew and being on TV is going to get anybody excited. So, do you guys think that Emily would have worked out with them if they continue to pursue them? I think they made the right decision, honestly, choosing to cut off continuing a relationship with her. But it is very cool that Vanessa was like, oh yeah, we can still be friends and all that. But hopefully Jarod doesn't try. I could see Jarod trying to do some stuff with Emily on the side, so let's hope he doesn't do that. I would hope with this whole thing with Kayla and Emily would teach Jarod and Vanessa maybe somewhat of a lesson. I'm not sure how old Jarod and Vanessa is, but they seem to be like in their mid-30s or early 30s because they got 4 kids. I think they need to find someone closer to their age, because if they keep going for girls in their early 20s, those girls are still trying to explore and figure out what they want in life and who they are. So maybe they find someone in their late 20s or early 30s or mid 30s. Maybe they'll find someone who has an idea of who they are and what they want, and they're more established, so they can look for something long term instead of something temporary. And I do honestly think they need to find someone who has kids, and because they know what comes with kids. And, going from 0 kids to 4 kids like the Clarks has, that is a lot to take on, especially for someone early in their 20s. So they need someone who has experience with having children, because we don't want the same thing to happen like what we saw happen with Taylor and the Snowdens, and she moved in and she didn't have no kids and was living the single independent life, and she was just too overwhelmed and she couldn't take it and she left. So I think that would probably be their best bet on trying to find somebody that would mesh well with their family and what they're looking for. But that's it for this video. Make sure you hit the thumbs up if you enjoyed this video, subscribe if you haven't already, and make sure you turn on the bell notifications so you don't miss the tea while it's still hot.